So how should we best start the video now? Bitcoin at $67,600. That's at least a start. We're right where we basically started yesterday. So what has happened in the last few hours? Well, we can see without even looking at the news for now that something happened around, let's say, 3 a.m. Let's take a quick look at the news situation. Let's briefly summarize the whole thing. Trump said a little over 3 hours ago that he is willing to end the Iran war, even if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Congratulations, you started a war so that the Strait of Hormuz would stay open. And now it just stays closed. And apparently Trump doesn't feel like dealing with it anymore because it would mess up his timeline a bit. So let's put it this way. He capitulates, but at the same time bombs some other missile arsenal in Iran. Again, now an hour later, so 2 hours ago, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain want the war to continue. Okay, cool. And yeah, Bitcoin and crypto and the stocks are stable. It's just a shit show at this point. But there is some positive news. The Baltic Sea forest walrus has freed itself and is swimming again. Its condition remains critical. These are the important things we'll be dealing with in today's video. Just kidding. Now let's take a look at everything, and with that, welcome to a new crypto update video. Bitcoin at $67,700. I'm getting a real sense of déjà vu from yesterday, because we were in this exact same spot yesterday, and absolutely nothing at all has changed. The markets are still completely wrecked. In Japan, we now have the bonds completely going to the moon. That worries me a little. Private credit is a concern anyway. I'd say let's just get started, shall we? But before we get started, as always, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to join the free Telegram Talk and Signal group. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, you're welcome to join. You'll find the link for that for free down in the video description. As I said, you'll always find the latest information there, whether any trades are happening or if anything else is going on. And if you're still looking for an exchange where you can trade everything we discuss here, whether it's stocks, crypto, or Forex markets, you can do all of that with my partner. You can do that on the WEEX exchange. At the moment, you can also grab VIP 2 status. The promotion is still valid for 16 days. Plus, there are plenty of deposit bonuses. For example, if you deposit 2,000 USDT, you'll get a 300 USDT bonus voucher. So feel free to check it out using the link below in the video description, and you'll be all set. Let's dive in. So, as I said, not much has changed with Bitcoin. Let's dive a bit deeper here. You can see that open interest has dropped significantly now after the weekend with the absolute shit show that's currently going on. But we can also see in the CFD that a lot is simply being sold off. Over here, this is basically our heat map. You can see that the largest area is still between 64,000 and 64,200 US dollars. That is ultimately reflected in the large heat map as well. We have a small brief cluster here at 68,600 US dollars. Same as always at 72, at 64, and then another one at 55,000 US dollars. Which one will be hit first? Ask Trump, ask Himmy, no idea. But it's unbelievable what's still going on there. In any case, stock futures are once again a bit divided. Bonds advance on Trump war markets. Rob. So a few hours ago, just now, Iran has again seized an oil tanker, I think in the port of Dubai. I am honestly starting to completely run out of words myself because it is just an absolute total shit show at this particular point in time. So no matter what, Iran strikes fully laden Kuwait oil tanker in Dubai port. I don't know either. I'm really starting to run out of words. And then at the same time, US bond rally as traders bet on Fed rate cut in a complete turnaround. What the fuck? So just a few days ago, you might remember here, this is the Fed watch tool. There was no sign of a rate cut in there at all. And suddenly Powell is talking. And now here we go again, 5.5% probability of a rate cut. The markets are completely cooked. So no matter how you look at it, right? We have an energy crisis and more countries are discussing what to do about it, like the EU did today. And now you come at me with rate cuts. While inflation is rising, basically everything is screwed. Something is really not working at all in the world right now. And as I said, as long as government bonds are still so high, well, they've come down a bit from their peak levels by now. It's at least a positive point that we're down 5.6% since last week. In the 2-year bonds, for the 5-year bonds, we're still above 4%. The 10-year bonds are at 4.3%. But no one knows where we actually stand. That's the big problem. And now take a look at Japan. Japan looks like the biggest shitcoin. 3.717% on the 30-year bonds, 3.2% on the 20-year bonds. That's the biggest shitcoin chart I've seen in months. So, in my opinion at least, something is going completely surreal right now when it comes to the charts and the data situation. It's a bit strange, there's turmoil everywhere. And then news like interest rate cuts comes out. That really doesn't fit in at all. Let's take a look at the spot order book. As you can see, the volume is catastrophically low. So there hasn't really been any new spot volume coming in. On the contrary, it's being sold off slightly again, and we're right back here again at 10 million in volume. To be honest, that's also a bit too little, all things considered. Everything is something's not right. But anyway, if we take a quick look at our fractal, as we discussed yesterday, it's still running very, very accurately, but honestly, something should happen in the next few days. Either it becomes invalid or it simply remains valid, and we get a dump in the next few days. Of course, that also depends on which fractal it is. That's basically what it is now. Here is the one-to-one copy of our sideways phase, which it has to be said at this point is running very, very accurately. Time will tell. At the same time, our USDT dominance fractal, same story. We're at resistance here. You know, those of you who watch the live streams, by the way, the live stream is on again tonight at 7 p.m. Don't forget. We always tend to lag behind a bit here. That means the move that's visible here in the fractal should follow at some point. We'll see how it plays out. At the same time, as I said, we're still lacking a bit of volume and positive sentiment to really get a move to the upside going. We'll also take a look at the stock markets. It's the same story there, and you'll see what I mean. Anyone trading right now without a stop loss or anything like that is really being quite daring. Let's take a look at the vectors that are a bit below us, which of course were caused again by the move triggered by Trump, leaving a vector behind. We still have one open below at 66,000, so for me, everything actually remains unchanged. Even though, to be honest, we've moved a bit away from yesterday's Asia range. This is the Asia range here. It's a positive sign, but as I said, the volume is catastrophic, the whole market sentiment is catastrophic, and nobody really knows what's going on. Now, Trump says he doesn't want any more war, but the roads remain closed, which would still worsen the energy crisis. At the same time, the entire Middle East still wants war. I don't know either. No idea, you can feel it and see it. I think that still sums it up the most. I think I can repeat that as often as I want. Let's move on to the altcoins. In the end, it's the same sad story everywhere. Ethereum stable, Solana stable, XRP stable. Let's take a look at the Forex markets. Maybe there's a bit more happening there. The dollar is above 100. That's not a good sign. That's more of a sign for stocks. Sell off. Japan is intervening. I still have that noted up here. I still believe that's going to happen because the Japanese yen is absolutely weak. And by absolutely weak, I mean absolutely weak. It won't be long before they eventually have to step in. I think next week or the week after for sure. There's an interest rate decision in Japan where it's expected that rates will be raised. So the next 2 weeks are going to be tough, I think. Otherwise, the euro is, of course, in free fall because the dollar is strong. What surprises me a bit, I have to say, is gold. Gold looks very, very strong, at least in the last few days, despite the economic circumstances. And even though it was assumed that interest rate hikes were coming, gold is rising again. But, well, that's also because some people are now hoping there won't be any rate hikes, which of course pushes gold back up. So let's see. As I said, I'm still bullish here. My entry was up here around 4,740. So I'm still underwater here, significantly underwater, I have to say. But let's see how I'll handle the position up here if we somehow get into this zone. Silver in the end is the same story as gold. Then the 13th, markets. We need to keep a closer eye on them now. The DAX is slowly recovering again, but I honestly couldn't care less. Dow Jones also had a bit of a recovery yesterday, right at the support, now here in this zone. S&P 500, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, because we're also following the fractal here quite accurately. According to this, we would have at least another 1 or 2 days where we could go down and attack the lows before we then see a small relief rally, at least back into the area of 6,600 points. That would be roughly, from the current standpoint, a 5% move to the upside, which would also fit with Bitcoin, with a small relief rally. That would probably be the end of the war. That would be an absolute war catastrophe. then, or rather the carry trade, which would implode if it comes to that. As I said, it's still a bit fragile. In any case, the downside targets of the fractal have now been reached for the time being. That means anyone who is still in a position here, take profit. I can't say it often enough. The volume, if we take another look at the daily time frame, is still abysmal. So no matter how we look at it, with the Nasdaq yesterday saw another sell-off below 23,000 points. We're almost in my blue zone, which is the first support zone, and it goes down to the red one, down to 22,000 points. The sell-off volume is definitely increasing. The volatility index is still at 26, so it's still at a very, very high level, unchanged. The individual stocks, Nvidia took quite a hit yesterday, falling below support. You really have to watch that closely now. And of course also TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. It's also just barely holding at support. If that breaks, then Nvidia will fall too. And if Nvidia falls, then basically all the stock ETFs will fall as well. We're now in a phase where bonds, at least in Japan, are absolutely crucial. We are in an energy crisis, or rather, we've reached a stage of the energy crisis where even larger states like the EU are now slowly but surely starting to think about it. In the end, everything will depend on whether the Strait of Hormuz continues to operate or not, because oil is still on the rise. But as I said, the main thing is that Timmy in the Baltic Forest is doing well. We'll take a look at everything calmly this evening at 7 p.m. Otherwise, I just can't give you any more impact right now. Unfortunately, because the markets are absolutely shit. Rate cuts, rate hikes, bond markets out of control. Honestly, I don't even know which way is up anymore. I'm telling you straight. We'll just wait and see. Bitcoin, stable. We'll talk again this evening. I wish everyone a wonderful day, or rather get through the day well, and then see you this evening at 7 p.m. for the live stream. Until then, ciao ciao, and as always, stay cool.